Today, President Donald Trump's tariffs on imports from Canada, Mexico, and China went into effect. These are America's three largest trading partners. WMTV's Aria Wozniak talked with UW-Platteville professors about the implications of this new trade war.
Right now, the U.S. will impose a 25% tariff on almost all goods from Canada and Mexico. 20% now to China, doubled from last month. Michael Compton, a professor of environmental horticulture, spoke with me about the impacts this will have on the agricultural sector. He says almost 90% of our imports for fruit and vegetables come from Mexico and Canada. Now, if we look at the effect for consumers, Professor Compton said he guesses there could be a 5 to 10% increase in fruit and vegetable prices.
Over 15 million pounds of fruits and vegetables are imported from Mexico and Canada here into the U.S. So any kind of tariffs that would increase the wholesale cost associated with those products is going to have an impact on consumers.
Professor Compton says we can expect to see changes in the prices of tropical foods the most. These are foods like avocados, mangoes, tomatoes, and peppers, which are foods that are often imported from Mexico. Live in the newsroom, Aria Wozniak, WMTV 15 News.
Aria, thank you. We are also told domestic production may start to change as people try to grow things more locally.